As the Money Burns is an original podcast by Nikki Woodard. Based on historical research, this is a deep exploration into what happened to a set of actual heirs and heiresses to some of America's most famous fortunes when the Great Depression hit. Each episode has 3 primary sections. Section 1 is a narrative story. Section 2 goes deeper into the historical facts. Section 3 focuses on contemporary, emotional, and personal connections. Story recap. Henrietta Hartford fails to end son Huntington Hartford's secret marriage while a $1 billion bridal party celebrates Sam Van Alen's wedding. Now back to As the Money Burns. Golden Jubilee. The games begin for another tennis week in Newport, but in society's game, will one socialite be able to outmaneuver the scandal ahead? Section 1. Story. Do you know what time it is? It's another August in Newport, Rhode Island. That means tennis week. And not just any tennis week, but the Golden Jubilee. Yes, 50 years of the annual lawn tennis tournament. Returning for the star-studded activities includes 1931 Wimbledon stars men's singles first and second place champions Sidney Wood and Frank Shields. The latter has seemingly recovered from the leg injury that prevented the 2 teammates playing against each other in the actual finals match. As for the Davis Cup Tour, Frank went on to beat the British Fred Perry, who later beat Sidney, while British Bunny Austin defeats both Frank and Sidney. The U.S. loses the semifinals to Great Britain, but in the end, France wins its 5th straight Davis Cup title. Better luck next year. However, all that wonderful testosterone-filled glory has arrived in the New England enclave of Newport, Rhode Island. Here, the returning young U.S. Davis Cup team stirs up quite a lot of hope and passion. Young debutantes swirl around Newport activities involving the handsome young men. The Newport Casino turns into a de facto dormitory hosting many of the visiting athletes. Vice Chairman or Chairwoman, Mrs. Maud Barger-Wallach must be in heaven after recently returning as chaperone for the U.S. team abroad and continues to interact with her boys. Brothers, new father Henry Van Alen and newlywed Sam Van Alen also serve on the committee along with other high-profile Newport colonists. Henry, too, will briefly play in the tournament, but will lose very quickly in the first round. As part of the activities, 2 visiting British Davis Cup team members, Fred Perry and George Hughes, also play in the tournament, a reduced international representation most likely due to leaner times. The hottest 90 minutes of play occurs between Frank Shields and American and UCLA player Ellsworth Vines. Frank pulls several amazing shots, but eventually loses to Ellsworth's steady, powerful strokes and hard serves. The games are indeed exciting, and the final match is between British Perry and American Ellsworth. The winner is the more serious Ellsworth, who will soon win his first Grand Slam singles title at the U.S. Championships only weeks later. Also back in Newport, richest boy Huntington Hartford and his smothering mother, Henrietta Hartford, make sure they return in time for the festivities. Henrietta did not achieve her Hawaiian trip objective of breaking up Huntington's secret marriage to the pretty dentist's daughter, Mary Lee Epling. However, Henrietta has managed to keep the situation a secret, fueling the hope that her agenda may still prevail. Now she could use a little rest, fun, and distraction from scandal. Fortunately, all attention is focused on the players and parties. Back at Seaverge, Henrietta reviews her award-winning prize plans as she plots her next moves. Inside her hothouse, she gently caresses the cantaloupes dangling in their netted hammocks, perfectly ripening without bruising nor spoiling. Reminds her so much of her precious son. He is busy inside the glass gymnasium constructed last year to help him improve his tennis and squash games all year round. There's just no way that Mary Lee will be up to the task of helping Huntington ascend to his proper place in society. Next door at Rough Point, another socially ambitious mother, Nanaline Duke, hosts a dinner while her daughter, the tall and awkward Doris Duke, remains traveling in Europe. Likely Bulgaria at the present moment. They parted ways after London in July. Doris is photographed and recorded going about to the different stores and bemoaning being overcharged upon recognition. Meanwhile, Nanaline hosts a dinner party for other upcoming debutantes. So many annual activities take place near this time. The flower show, where Henrietta has had much success, the horse show, the dog show, and yacht races. The grand and elaborate luncheons, teas, dinners, and balls all serve the best fare, indulging on champagne and caviar. While elsewhere, less fortunates gather around Salvation Army trucks distributing peaches. Oh, will the socially climbing ambitious ever learn there is rarely ever time to rest, as scandal is always around the corner? Sure enough, Henrietta kept Huntington's news out of the papers, only to have her daughter Josephine Hartford make her own splash. The older sister has little to do with their overbearing mother, who focuses way more on her son than her daughter. Years previously, Josephine escaped by hastily marrying Charles Ollie O'Donnell, a prominent heir of both Manhattan and Newport blue bloods. A glamour girl herself with artistic and linguistic talents, Josephine, who also goes by JoJo, has made a name for herself as a great hostess. While Henrietta and Hartford were on the Malalo cruise ship to Hawaii, Josephine took up residence in none other than the divorce colony of Reno this summer. Headlines abound as Josephine suddenly divorces her husband of 8 years. The reason made it even more sensational. Aboard a recent ocean trip, Josephine met and fell madly in love with the charming Caviar King, Count Vadim Makarov, who goes by Billy. The former Russian Tsarist naval officer has made a fortune importing the coveted delicacy. Another white Russian exile living in Europe and the Americas, but only this man is now substantially wealthy. The ink hasn't even dried on the Nevada divorce when Vadim marries Josephine in Paris on August 15, 1931, and immediately they head off for their 3-month honeymoon in Europe. And JoJo will enter the most creative and exciting period of her life. Maybe there really can be a happily ever after all. Section 2, History and Historiography. Even in troubling times, there are certain luxuries that never seem to be denied. In fact, they might even increase in desirability. An ongoing historical delicacy involves eating salted cured fish eggs, known or referred as roe, and with the most prestigious form being caviar. While these might be harvested from several different species of fish, including salmon, the most coveted, prestigious, and only properly termed caviar comes from sturgeon. There are 24 different species of sturgeon worldwide. This prehistoric fish has a long lifespan and reaches maturity far later in life, often 10 to 15 years or later. The species, location, and age will affect the flavor, with a preference being for older sturgeons aged around 40 to 50 years, and especially the beluga sturgeon coming from the Caspian Sea. The first known mention of caviar is by Aristotle. In ancient Greece, caviar is consumed at a banquet with flowers and sometimes as a dessert. The tradition spread from the Byzantine Empire into Russia. Until the Middle Ages, Persians served the eggs crushed. The term caviar comes from the Persian kavyar, meaning cake of strength, for the medicinal powers associated with it. British kings reserved the fish for themselves, and sturgeon is referred as royal fish or czar's fish, depending on the regions. In the 14th century, Venetian troops will bring caviar from the Black Sea into Europe. By the 1500s, caviar is deemed a luxury item when it became referred as imperial caviar in Russia and served on toast or unsalted crackers. Peter the Great himself was fascinated by the delicate treat. The term caviar gets used as an obscure and unknown reference by Shakespeare's Hamlet, referring to some play as caviar to the general. Galileo is a fan, while French scholar Rabelais considers it ridiculous. In the early 19th century, America produces so much caviar from the overabundance of North American sturgeon that the price was only a nickel and would be served for free in saloons because the saltiness would make customers thirsty. Naturally, it is first the American tradition of internationally importing caviar by a German immigrant, Henry Schacht, in 1873. But the luxury trend we relate to caviar today is primarily a result of the mass disarray from the end of World War I and the Russian Revolution. The influx of dispossessed Russian nobility may not have been able to take much of their wealth, but they did bring their expensive taste with them. Many relocate to none other than Paris. In protest of the Bolshevik agenda, former nobles and aristocrats continued to carry on the high culture they had left involving the arts, including music, ballet, and, of course, caviar. During the 1920s, Paris creates the trend of eating caviar on top of blinis and with champagne. 1930s cruise ships will also feature caviar as part of their elaborate 10-course meals. Now here's where things get a bit weird and also convoluted. I have not uncovered the answer to my question. Where exactly does all this caviar come from? The appearance in Paris is heavily related to two brothers, Malcolm and Muche Petrossian. They are referred both as Iranian Christians and Armenians. According to the online Armeniapedia.com, the brothers were born on the Iranian side of the Caspian Sea, but raised on the Russian side, likely coming from a silkworm farm in Tiflis, Georgia, same region of our prevalent Mary-Divani siblings. The Petrossian brothers fled the region after the Bolshevik Revolution in 1917 interrupted their law and medical studies. In 1920, they set up the first boutique in Paris's left bank, specializing in caviar and selling to hotels, especially the Place Vendôme. By the 1930s, the Petrossians further solidified business relations with the Soviet authorities to ensure their supply. To this day, the Petrossian label remains the premium caviar brand and follows strict ethical and law-abiding practices, and it is still a family-run business over 4 generations. For the next several decades, the Soviets tightly hold on to control of the very profitable caviar trade. Ironically, and not ironically if you pay enough attention to human nature, even the proletariat, communist, Bolsheviks hang on to the caviar tradition. Even a lowly Bolshevik might keep a tin in his home for a special celebration, such as New Year or World War II Victory Day, then eat it with extreme deference and in modest portions. Caviar and champagne are in abundance at the 1953 Soviet embassy celebration of the Bolshevik Revolution. There's a phrase in French, the gauche caviar, translated as the caviar left, the same as the champagne socialist, meaning someone who professes to claim socialist values while indulging in the hypocritical luxuries and elite-related lifestyles. The phrase is commonly used to attack political opponents, especially during 1980s French politics. The meaning should certainly be getting a new rise in light of more recent incidents relating to the last 2 years under the pandemic and certain movements. In contrast to the Petrossian family, Makarov is from a Russian noble family dating back to Catherine the Great and her son Emperor Paul I, from whom the Makarov dynasty first received their coat of arms in 1801. There are many illustrious members of the family since that time. When it comes to Count Vadim Makarov, it is a bit harder to find anything on him in relation to the caviar business. It might be partially due to his name, sometimes referred as Vadim and others as Vladimir. Within my sources, Vadim Makarov is not mentioned prior to his marriage to Josephine Hartford. Now, the only prior specifics I have in regards to Caviar Makarov is in a court case, United States versus Makarov. On December 14, 1926, United States Court of Customs and Patent Appeals reviews which section of the Tariff Act of 1922 should be applied in relation to the duty applied to the importation of fresh caviar in tins. Makarov wins the appeal to be reclassified away from the 30% duty according to paragraph 721 for ice or frozen products, which specifies in particular caviar and other fish roe for food purposes packed in ice or frozen, prepared or preserved by the addition of salt in any amount. Instead, the court determines that the processing and manufacturing of the Makarov caviar product is neither preserved in salt but merely brine washed as done in common fish prepping procedures. Furthermore, the product is not hermetically sealed nor packed in ice or frozen, though does require refrigeration to not spoil. Therefore, the product is both fresh caviar or fresh unsalted caviar with a sweet taste, although slightly salty flavor. And the duty should be charged at 10% ad valorem rate, meaning 10% according to value, as applied in paragraph 1459. The previous judgment was reversed upon this appeal. Now, in today's time, that might sound a little trivial, but the amount of a few cents multiplied over large importation could become quite expensive. As well, I found one ad for Wolferman's grocery chain selling caviar tins for 9 cents, thus possibly significantly increasing the price against competition. I am quite sure the 9-cent variant is not nearly of the same quality, but still a relevant marker of prices in 1931. The Caviar King, as Vadim Makarov became known, is one of the largest importers of caviar to the United States. However, most of the press I can locate involves his marriage in relationship to Josephine Hartford, or his father. His father, Vice Admiral Stepan Makarov, supervised the development of the modern polar icebreaker steamship Yermak and 2 more icebreaker steamships to connect the Trans-Siberian Railway across Lake Baikal. In 1904, during the Russo-Japanese War, Stepan dies when his ship struck a naval mine and the ship's magazine exploded. Following his father's lead, Count Vadim Makarov becomes an officer in the Russian Imperial Navy and serves as a commander during World War I. During this position, he will also spend time in Washington, D.C., working with U.S. naval forces. In the years after the revolution, Count Vadim Makarov develops many interests and abilities. First, Vadim starts a caviar business, Makarov & Company, then expands into oil and machinery. Soon, Vadim will return to his love of the sea and developing naval technology, one being his yacht Vamarie in 1933, and even competes in races at Newport, Rhode Island. By the end of Vadim's life, he is noted as a naval and oil well technology inventor and a significant contributor to the U.S. Naval Academy in Russian intelligence and the advancement of both naval science and technology. He will donate his yacht Vamarie prior to World War II as a long-term training vessel at the Naval Academy. There are several online accounts of people remembering fondly, more recently, their time aboard this vessel. Vadim is fiercely loyal to his new country and is staunchly against all things Bolshevik. He will also be a devoted member of the White Russian Tolstoy Foundation in the latter half of his life, and will work closely with Countess Alexandra Tolstoy, the daughter of author Leo Tolstoy. While things like caviar might be a coveted treat, true loyalty and devotion are luxuries that one should never take for granted. Section 3. Contemporary and Personal Relevance. Our tales are currently placed within the confines of Prohibition and the Great Depression, 2 coinciding eras involving restrictions that lead to an even greater demand of what is considered forbidden. The image and desires for luxuries have their own twisted realities, even more so during economic downturns. I can't say I've had much association with caviar. I might have tasted it once, but can't recall. Still, there are plenty of media-related associations. I can't help but remember the scene in You've Got Mail when Meg Ryan's character scolds Tom Hanks' character for eating too much caviar, claiming it's a garnish, and his action is hoarding and selfish. Another humorous episode of the popular TV series Frasier has the 2 brothers, Frasier Crane and Niles Crane, involved in potential black market caviar. As for the Makarov name, it too makes more modern appearances. First, the Far East Shipping Company, FESCO's oldest operating modern icebreaker is built by the Russians in 1975 and named Admiral Makarov after Stepan Makarov. In 1988, the Admiral Makarov is used in the international rescue of 3 gray whales trapped in ice in Alaska. That story of the whales is featured in the 2012 Big Miracle film starring Drew Barrymore and John Krasinski and is produced by one of my former companies while I was there. We would get email messages from the frosty set as they progress through filming. The real Admiral Makarov ship continues to serve the purpose of scientific exploration and as a supplier ship in the polar region. In Call of Duty Modern Warfare series, first 3 games, 2007, 2009, and 2011, the main antagonist is Vladimir Makarov with a V. While highly unlikely to be associated with Vadim Makarov or his father, and more a use of popular Russian-sounding names. The character is still listed in the Wikipedia page involving the Makarov dynasty, in which Vadim is not listed, but his father is. By the way, Vadim Makarov is spelt with 2 F's, while his father in the dynasty Makarov is spelt with a V. Which leads us back to caviar. The best color of caviar is considered black with a shimmer of gold and thus referred as black gold. a bit like its association on the black market. With the fall of the Soviet Union and the regulations on harvesting caviar became too relaxed and overfishing and poaching resulted. A steep rise in the black market trading of caviar exacerbates the problem, making the unavailable even more prized. In 1998, due to the dwindling population, beluga and other sturgeon are included in the Convention of Endangered Species. By 2004, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service placed beluga sturgeon on the endangered species list. In another odd foreign policy, back in 2000, U.S. lessened some of the restrictions on Iranian food products, including pistachios and caviar. The Muslim country, which does not eat the scaleless sturgeon as forbidden in their kosher halal laws, has better oversight into production and poaching. Caviar remains a highly prized and traded commodity today. It is also relevant to note that once restrictions are removed, there is an unleashed hedonism that can prevail. Ever notice how communist or other badly repressed immigrants have insatiable desires in accumulating wealth and luxuries in their freedom? Those deprived often stay focused on the larger prize. How will our heirs and heiresses fare under their envious and greedy stares? Recently, I co-hosted an episode of Proud Stutter with Maya Chepka, where we interview actress and singer Desiree Cole about her performing career and about a special animated character she helped inspire with a stutter. That Proud Stutter episode will be released on August 26, 2022. Links will be available in the notes section and at As the Money Burns website, News and Events tab. If you enjoy As the Money Burns, then please share, like, and subscribe. Next, when we return to As the Money Burns, wherever money resides, extortion and blackmail forever threaten the secrets and scandals one wishes to hide. Alas, a mother's work is never done. Until then. As the Money Burns is an original podcast written, produced, and voiced by Nikki Woodard, based on historical research. Archival music has been provided by Past Perfect Vintage Music. Check out their website at www.pastperfect.com. Please come visit us at As the Money Burns via GoodPods, Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram. Transcripts, timeline, episode guide, and character bios are available at asthemoneyburns.com.